What's good, YouTube? Quasar here. Today I'm going to be bringing you guys my Blue Eyes Chaos Max deck profile. Now the reason I wanted to go with the Chaos Max version because we now have a really good boss monster that's really easy to drop, especially now that Advanced Ritual Art's at 3. So let me just jump right into the deck profile. So first, of course, we're playing 3 copies of Chaos Max. I've seen a lot of other builds, and most other builds actually only play 2, which I disagree with. He's your boss monster of the deck. You obviously want to be playing him at 3. You want to see this card often and drop it as early as possible. So that's why I think playing this at 3 is crucial. Plus, even if you do open multiples, you have a lot of ways to get around cloggy hands because we play things like trade in. So 3 I think is optimal. So if you don't know what Chaos Max does, basically it's a level 8 dark instead of light, so that's also really cool. It's a 4K beater. When it's ritual summoned, basically it's unaffected by your opponent's card effects, can't be targeted, can't be destroyed. It's really difficult to get over. And they can't hide behind defense position monsters because this card does piercing. It actually does double piercing, so that's really amazing. If it attacks a defense position monster that has 0 defense, it's 8,000 damage, so really quick OTK potentials. Basically, the only way around this is to beat over it, which is really difficult. I know there's Utopia the Lightning, or they'd have to negate the summon of this guy, which then basically, because you are playing the alternatives and all the other great stuff that's in the regular Blue Eyes engine, they're not going to be able to negate that because they're wasting it on your Chaos Max. So I felt the Chaos Max build was definitely a lot more powerful, a lot more explosive, and a lot more lethal. So 3 copies of Chaos Max definitely had to be played. Next, of course, we obviously have the 3 copies of Alternative. This is another great card that I think the Blue Eyes support needed. You just reveal a Blue Eyes in order to special summon it. You can target a monster your opponent controls and destroy it just outright, but it can't attack the turn you use that effect. And great thing is it's another Melody target, so essentially you activate Melody, you'd be adding that, and then of course you'd add your copy of Blue Eyes White Dragon. But another thing with Melody is you can still actually target your Chaos Max and add those to your hand as well, so that's beautiful. So of course, yes, because it's a Blue Eyes deck, you obviously have to be playing 3 copies of Blue Eyes White Dragon. I went with the movie artwork. I think that is the coolest artwork we have out there. I know the original artwork is always just amazing. Everyone loves that artwork. You can't go wrong with that. But I just think the way these look really cool, had to play the movie art. And I'm also playing 1 copy of Dragon Spirit of White. Again, another really good card to be playing in Blue Eyes. Essentially, when you special summon it, it's like the new Cosmic Cyclone. You just get to banish one of your opponent's spell or traps. It's always treated as a Blue Eyes card as well, so that actually also helps with some certain effects. Mostly, you want to be using it with your stones. And then while this is on the field, during either player's turn, you can tribute it, special summon a Blue Eyes from your hand. So that also is a very useful effect. I played 2 copies of the White Stone of Ancients. I know a lot of people like playing 3. I felt that 2 was fine because I am also playing 1 copy of the White Stone of Legend. I know some people like playing 1 of these, some people don't like seeing it at all. Some people play maybe 3 and 1 or 3 and none. But I felt 2 and 1 was optimal. We aren't playing cards of consonants in this build, but these are still good, too good to like not play. This is always good to just pitch when you are activating Melody. Melody with White Stone is actually amazing because when you pitch that, you essentially can search your alternative and your Chaos Max, and then you just use this card's effect to add the Blue Eyes. If you don't know what Ancients does, basically during the end phase, the turn it's sent to the graveyard, you get a special summon of Blue Eyes from your deck. Really good. And when it's in the graveyard but not the turn it was sent there, you can just banish this and then add a Blue Eyes from your graveyard back to your hand, so it allows for some nifty combos to be done. 3 copies of Sage with Eyes of Blue. So basically, when you normal summon it, you get to add another level 1 light tuner from your deck to your hand. What's beautiful about that is you get to add Effect Veiler, or you get to add like one of your stones, but usually you want to go for Veiler first. And also, a lot of times we also use its discard effect. So again, because we are playing the Chaos Max build, we do play Manju. So basically, after you normal summon Manju and then get its effect for search, it's basically dead. You just have like a 1400 monster. But if you also have Sage in your hand, you can pitch the Sage, send Manju to the grave, and then you have another Blue Eyes on the field, and you already just got the search off. So that is really helpful. You want to be playing 3 copies of Sage. 2 copies of Maxi, of course. Maxi is probably the best hand trap of the format right now, so unfortunately it's at 2, but you gotta be playing it at 2. And then 1 copy of Veiler because it is searchable. Then moving on to the spells, I play 2 copies of Advanced Ritual Art and 1 copy of Chaos Form. I was originally playing 3 copies of AVA, but I found that with all the sending to the graveyard that happens, you often end up with all 3 of your Blue Eyes in the graveyard very quickly, maybe as soon as turn 1. So if you don't get that first turn Chaos Max, you want to end up getting Chaos Form to your hand and use that effect to banish a Blue Eyes in order to summon your Chaos Max. So I felt 2 and 1 was good. You still have a lot of ability to search your AVAs, and then with 2, you see it fairly often. So you still have the ability to go into Chaos Max first turn a lot of the times. Oops. Anyways, yeah, 3 copies of Melody. This card is insanely broken. Adds you your Blue Eyes, your alternative, or your Chaos Max. Any 2 of those 3 you can add to your hand with the activation of 1 just by pitching a card, so really helpful there. 3 copies of Return of the Dragon Lords. Since you're sending Blue Eyes to the graveyard so often, you obviously want to be playing 3 of that to bring Blue Eyes back. And then while this is in the graveyard, if one of your dragons were to be destroyed, you can just banish this card instead. So this card is phenomenal, especially in a deck like this. 3 copies of Trade-In. I mean, these are actually the only commons I have in the deck. Everything else is hollow. Kind of salty about that, but also not down to drop 10 bucks a piece for the hollow trade-ins. So sorry about the scrub commons, but you gotta be playing 3 copies of Trade-In. Soul Charge, of course, because you're dumping everything to the grave, might as well be bringing it back, right? 2 copies of Swords of Concealing Light. This card is really helpful for setting your monsters into face down defense position. And of course, because Chaos Max does double piercing, you're going to be inflicting a lot of damage really quickly. One copy of Regeki, again, just to nuke boards, like, gotta love that. And then lastly, we play 2 copies of Twin Twister. You have a lot of cards you can discard, so that's no problem there, and you just get to pop 2. So that's it for the main deck. We aren't playing any traps. We don't really need traps for a build like this. Deck is already very explosive. So let's get into the extra deck. So for a fusion, I play Twin Burst. You can also even use your alternatives while they're on the field as fusion materials. You don't need to use polymerization, you just tribute the monsters on field. This card is pretty nuts because it can't be destroyed by battle. And then if you ram into something that is stronger than 3k, if that monster does not get destroyed by battle, it gets banished instead. So, and it gets to make 2 attacks on monsters during each battle phase. So essentially, if there are 2 really strong targets on board that you just don't have an answer to, you'd probably want to go into this guy because he'll eliminate them. You will take the damage, but it's worth it to get rid of those troublesome monsters. So that's the only fusion. We're playing, of course, number 95, Dark Matter, really strong. Sending a lot of different monsters to the grave is actually quite helpful. Like, you can send the stones, you can send spirit, you can send a blue eyes. Doesn't really matter. Like, I mean, it's best to send the stones and then your opponent would have to banish. It's another 4k beater, so that's amazing. So you can overlay that on top of full armor, which is really good. If your opponent does have an established board, you can overlay this on top of either 107 or Cypher, doesn't really matter. I mean, I'd usually want to go into 107 and then drop full armor. Use full armor's effect to get rid of a face-up card, and then you can just go into Dark Matter. Whereas if your opponent has something else that you might want, you can go into Cypher. Use Cypher's effect, take control of that monster. That monster then becomes, you know, another copy of Cypher. So you can just essentially attack with both of them. And the thing I love about that is I'd usually use that effect when I also have a Sage in my hand, because once you have control of that monster, you can then use Sage, ditch it in order to get rid of that opponent's monster rather than them getting it back during the end phase. So that's a really nifty combo there. Number 38, because it's probably the most broken rank 8 that we have, is also Felgrand. Felgrand's really good too, used for protection. We also have number 23. This guy's also really good. He can negate anything once per turn pretty much, and he can attack directly, and then if he inflicts battle damage, gets to destroy a monster on the field. So really solid rank 8s there as well. And then for the last rank 8 I'm playing one copy of number 46. This card's also really helpful, especially against the mirror. Getting to take control of your opponent's dragons is just insanely helpful, so that's why you play one copy of number 46. Now on to the synchros. Play 2 copies of Spirit, of course. 2 is all you need. You don't need to play 3. Honestly, you usually only go into 1 per duel. Card is pretty nuts against pendulums, shuts them down hard. Any deck that revolves a lot around graveyard effects, it shuts that down too, because it can negate an effect that activated in the graveyard once per turn. And then of course the tribute effect is always nice. I usually do tribute it for one of the level 7s, but I am also playing one copy of Azure Eyes. I almost never synchro into it. Sometimes, if the situation is right, I would use Spirit's Effect just to go into Azure Eyes. Just to basically bring back another Blue Eyes and then just continue off plays from there. I'm also playing one copy of Crystal Wing. You can gain access to that when you use Spirit's Effect in order to bring out either Black Rose or Michael. I often go into Michael because you basically pay 1,000 to banish a card, and then you can just normal summon any of your level 1 tuners and then sink it into your crystal. There's also Black Rose as another option, but more often than not, you're going to be going into Michael. But anyways, that's it for the extra deck. Hope you guys enjoyed my Blue Eyes Chaos Dragon deck profile. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And we'll see you next time.